Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope you're having a lovely day. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we're going to create a project for Newton's Nook Designs using an oldie but goodie. This has been in the Newton's Nook Design shops for a while, and it's called Cultivated Cacti. We're going to make a fun just stick by me card. And I love cactus, and I like the solid images because it's just so easy to break out your inks and stamp and create. So we're taking some white cardstock, putting it in our Misty here. We're going to take one of the cacti and we're going to color in our cacti or ink them up with Distress Oxide inks. I'm going to take the one that has arms basically and we're going to ink it up with Shabby Shutters. I'm going to stamp it a few times. It's beading up on my new stamp, so I think if I stamp it again it's going to be nice and solid. And then I do want to add a little bit of gradient with the color, so a little bit of dimension. So to do that, I'm going to take a slightly darker ink. This is peeled paint, and then I'm just going to go along the edge of my stamp. This is going to add a little shadowing to the right side of my cacti, and it's going to give it a little bit of dimension. So once we have this done, we're going to move on to our second. We're going to make two little succulent pots. So this next one we're going to ink up with Twisted Citron. We'll stamp that. This is such a pretty succulent. And then we'll do a little shading with an ink that's slightly darker than Twisted Citron. We're going to use Mowed Lawn. And you can really basically just kind of roll your ink pad along the edge, and it will just, you don't want no harsh lines, so try to avoid doing that. I do want a little bit more of the Mowed Lawn on the bottom, so I'm going to add a little more ink, and I am happy with the way this turned out. Now there's quite a few flowers, well there's a couple of flowers in the Cultivated Cacti Stamp Set, and I chose this one. Kind of reminded me of a prickly pear jam my mother used to make. I stamped two of those flowers with pink raspberry, and then I'm going to stamp one of the flower pots with Wild Honey. We're going to go with some orangey colors for our succulent pots. I'm going to grab another one, and I love that you can mix and match. That's the best thing about this. I picked up another one with the lid of my Misty, and we're going to go in with another orangey color. This is Ripe Persimmon. And we're not going to add any gradient to our flower pots. We're just going to keep them solid and bright. I think that's going to work out great. And those are just the images we're going to use today. I'm going to use to separate the coordinating dies, line them up, tape them down, and we'll run these through our die cutting machine. And after we have all of these die cut, we'll set these aside. Just taping down, making sure that I don't hit my oxide inks. So there we go. Now we're going to work on our background. And our background, I'm going to be using the Frameworks die set. This is a nice stash builder die set, and I like the large postage edge. I'm actually going to create a frame with it. So I'll take one of the inside frames. It's the one with the scallops that are facing the inside. I'm going to actually just use that, not as the frame itself, but to create a frame with the postage edge. And then for my sentiment, we're going to use this little ticket die. That's the smallest one in the Frameworks die set. We'll run this through the die cutting machine, so we have a frame and a piece that looks like a ticket for our sentiment, and that's good to go. Now I want to put something behind my frame, and I mentioned earlier we're going to make a night sky, so that's what we're going to do. I'm taking a panel. It's actually a Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock, and we're going to ink blend a night background using 3 Distress Oxide inks. I'm going to bring in my little craft mat, and we're going to start by ink blending Tumble Glass. Now I sped this part up really fast. Tumble Glass is going on the very bottom, and I'm just using my blending brush. Our mid-tone color is another blue. This is a darker blue. It's Faded Jeans. And we'll ink this up, kind of blending the two together on the bottom. And then we're going to add a really darkest ink, the darkest you can get, I guess, Black Soot, to the very top. And we're going to add some black for our night sky. I want kind of a gradient night sky, and I think this is going to work out great. I do need to blend these two colors a little bit more, and when I did that, I created a black soot line, but I kind of liked it, so I went with it. And we're going to end up trimming this panel down and putting it behind our window frame. Now, I wanted some shimmer to my background, my night sky, so I went through my stash and I found some Perfect Pearls. This is a mist, and it's very old. I don't even know if they still have it or not. But it's like a silver shimmery mist. I'm going to go ahead and heavily spray my background panel in my little spray box. We'll let that oxidize for just a little bit, and I was really surprised actually that the nozzle wasn't clogged, because I think I've had it for over 5 years. But it still works like a charm, and it creates a really pretty soft shimmery background. So my panel is pretty saturated, so I'm going to use my heat gun and dry it, and then I trimmed down my panel and added that directly to my A2 size card front. And then for my frame, I popped up with some foam tape and added that to the card base as well. Now we're going to stamp our sentiment. For my card today, I chose "Thank you for sticking by me." I think that's a cute sentiment. And we'll stamp that with my VersaFine Onyx Black ink in the center of that little ticket there. After we have our sentiment stamped, we're going to go ahead and add foam adhesive behind all of our cacti pieces and also our sentiment. My ink's probably still a little wet on my sentiment, so I'm going to lightly add the adhesive. Sometimes when you flip it over and add it to your craft mat to put adhesive behind it, it smears, so I was extra careful about that. Lower this a bit, and then I want to add one pot to the left of my sentiment and one on top of my sentiment. And then I did add the little flowers for a little extra color. Scoot this over just a bit, and I love the cacti in the night background. I think it's really pretty. Now for bells and whistles, I want to spread out the white a little bit. So I'm going to bring in my white gel pen. I'm going to add a few dots to the flower. And then I'm also going to add some Simply White crystal drops around my background, just to spread out the white of the frame on the inside of my night sky. And then I wanted a little glittery, a little extra sparkle. The Perfect Pearls adds a shimmer but not sparkle, so I'm using my Ranger silver stickles, and when you tilt the card it just makes it so pretty because it really does add a little bit of sparkle. So that's my project today for Newton's Nook Designs. If you're interested in anything, it's listed below. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. Have a fabulous day, and we will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.